Don't talk to me, I'm tired. With his eyes shifted coldly, John pushed my shoulder to chase me out of his sight and walked away to change his clothes. Wait, I tried to call out, but no voice came. As John's heartless figure of his back disappeared from view, a wave of dizziness hit me, and I found myself weakly kneeling on the spot. No way! He didn't show any emotion. I've been holding back so much until now. Maybe it's partly my fault. Perhaps John is just busy with work. I've been desperately searching for reasons to convince myself of this. I believed that if I changed, John would return to his old self. For that, I've done everything I could. But still, John didn't change. That's why I resorted to the last option. I had resolved that this was really the last time, and with determination, I had spoken. Let's end this cleanly with a divorce. It was at that moment I had decided. There was a new message on John's smartphone, which was on the table. Without thinking, I looked at it and was shocked. What's this? Seeing that, I made a vow in my heart. There's nothing else to do but brace myself. I'll show that man what I'm made of. My name is Emily Simpson, 26 years old. Just the other day, I left home after getting married to John, whom I had dated for about 3 years. It might sound a bit self-serving to say, but I've been the apple of my family and quite adored. Because of that, the day I left home, the whole family cried. Be happy, Emily. John, I'm counting on you to assure Emily a joyful life of marriage. Of course. John answered with a confident smile, even under the pressure of my father's words. I'm really counting on you. There are 2 reasons why my father pressed the point so much. The first is because John is divorced. Moreover, he ended his first marriage in just 6 months. The reason for the divorce was said to be irreconcilable differences, but the brevity of the marriage is still concerning. While my father consented to the marriage, he had always been worried about that. As a man myself, I completely understand how you feel. That's why I want to settle things in my own way today. John declared with a raised voice, then pulled out something he had brought with him. It was a blank divorce form. This may seem like an unconventional act, but John said it with a serious face. If I ever fail to make you happy, please submit this. As my father stood there confused, John continued. I'm sorry for worrying Emily's parents since I have a history of divorce. Consider this a sort of insurance. It's something I hope to never use. It's my own way of showing my commitment to making Emily absolutely happy. Please, take it. My father, though bewildered, seemed to understand John's sincere intentions. He nodded silently and accepted it. This is the second reason my father's been worried. John, he's quite the character, always playing the clown. I get it. I believe you. My father nodded with a complex look on his face. That's how our married life started. I wouldn't say it was the marriage I dreamed of, but I was looking forward to it. Yet, what awaited me was an unexpected kind of hell. After we got married, as always, I would wake up earlier than John every day, get things ready, and send him off with a smile. Have a great day. See you later. Before we were married, John would respond with a hug and a kiss, waving and saying, I'm off. I'll do my best, love you, Emily. But after we got married, John changed. Yeah. That was all he would say before leaving the house. His indifference was so shocking that at first, I wondered if he was feeling unwell. Even when he came home, John was strange. Welcome home. Want to have dinner? Or take a bath? I'd greet him with these usual lines. To which John would lazily reply with just one word, bath. Are you okay? Feeling sick? I asked worriedly, but John just glanced at me coldly and said, not really. Looking back, maybe I should have been grateful he even responded at all. It's been a week since we got married, and now I get no response from John at all. When he's in a good mood, I can at least get a word or a gesture from John, but the problem is when he's in a bad mood. When he's grumpy, he ignores me completely. Hey, don't ignore me. It has always been like this since we got married. Did I do something? No response from John. Answer me. When I get so down that I'm about to cry, John sees it and lets out a big sigh. You think crying will solve everything? Must be nice being a woman, that simple. I want to deny it, but I can't stop the tears. All I could do was bow my head in silence, hiding my tears. My father runs his own company. I'm what you'd call a CEO's daughter. Before I got married, I worked as an office clerk at my father's company. That's where I met John. I processed a lot of the sales invoices that salesman John submitted. We got to know each other through that, and he asked me out. He seemed really surprised when he found out I was the CEO's daughter, but I was happy about it. It meant he saw me for me, not just as the CEO's kid. Back then, John listened to my stories intently and always responded with a smile. It seems such him hasn't existed anymore. I wish I hadn't gotten married if it was going to be like this. I wonder if something's going on with him. Did I do something wrong? I racked my brain but couldn't come up with anything. The only thing that could have triggered such a change in John was getting married. Some people do change after marriage, getting too comfortable or lax. I believe it happens to some degree. But with John, it's more than just some degree. If I had known he was like this before we got married, I never would have married him. I pulled out a piece of paper from a file I kept in the drawer of my desk. It was the blank divorce paper that John had given me that day. I wondered if submitting this to the courthouse would bring back the John the first knew before. Days went by as I repeatedly looked at the divorce paper and then put it back. One day, when I came back from shopping, John was standing there with a menacing look, waiting for me. It was broad daylight on a weekday. Why was he home? As I tried to smile and said welcome back, John slammed his hand on the table. Startled by the noise, I stumbled and fell. John stepped closer, looking down at me with cold eyes, and held up a piece of paper. You know what this is? He asked. In my fear, I just nodded. What John was holding was the divorce paper. It was always supposed to be in my drawer. How? Then it hit me. I might have forgotten to put it back after looking at them before I went shopping as I usually do. Do you want to divorce me? I couldn't say it wasn't true. Life with John lately has been mentally exhausting. If this is how it's going to be, I'm considering divorce. Come on. John, you've been so weird since we got married. You ignore everything I say now. This isn't happiness. John muttered, is it my fault, as he stared at the divorce paper. I'm fine with it if you want a divorce. What? But just remember, it's your fault, okay? You're the problem for not supporting your husband as a wife should. John waved the divorce paper teasingly. But, wait. You promised Dad. I started to remind him that he vowed to make me happy, but John just sneered as if he guessed what I was about to say. I promised to make you happy, is that what you're saying? Just like a little princess, living in a fantasy land. That's cruel. You and your dad are so naive. We're just from different worlds. Maybe you should experience being broke for once, for your own good. I didn't understand what John meant, but from that day, he stopped covering living expenses completely. To add insult to injury, he even took away the credit card that one's family could use. Originally, I had shortened my working hours because John wanted me to. I want to be greeted with a smile when I come home, he had said, so I decided to work a shorter time to fulfill his wish. Right now, as my job is part-time, I have a small income. It seems the rent and the utility bills have been paid, but the biggest problem is the food expenses. Please, we're out of food. I need money to live. I begged John for money, though it was humiliating. John just smiled smugly and said something outrageous. Don't worry. I'll just eat out. What? Wait a minute. No matter how much I pleaded, he completely ignored me, and in the end, I didn't get any contribution for living expenses. John has been coming home in the early hours of the morning day after day. I managed to get by with whatever food we had left and some instant meals, but I was at my wit's end. On the day John finally came home on time after a long while, I blurted out the words that had been on my mind for so long. You don't contribute financially, and you don't talk to me. This isn't happiness, this isn't even a marriage. If this is how it's gonna be, if you're not going to change, I want a divorce. If this made John change even a little, there might still be hope. If he doesn't change at all, then it's time for me to give up. It was my last resort. I waited anxiously for John's response. John hung his head and, scratching it furiously, said in a low voice, "Don't talk to me, I'm tired." With his eyes shifted coldly, John pushed my shoulder to chase me out of his sight and walked away to change his clothes. Wait, I tried to call out, but no voice came. As John's heartless figure of his back disappeared from view, a wave of dizziness hit me, and I found myself weakly kneeling on the spot. No way! He didn't show any emotion. I've been holding back so much until now. Since we got married, I wondered if it was partly my fault that John had changed his attitude so drastically, like he was a different person. Maybe it's because he's busy with work, I thought. I was looking for reasons to convince myself. I believed that if I changed, John would return to his old self. For that, I've done everything I could. But still, John didn't change. That's why I resorted to the last option. I had resolved that this was really the last time, and with determination, I had spoken. But there was not a hint of perturbation on John's face. Normally, wouldn't a man show some panic when his wife brings up divorce? Instead, John looked incredibly bothered. Seeing that face, I knew. John no longer loved me. Let's end this cleanly, divorce. There's nothing good about continuing this marriage. I'm hungry, I might as well pack my bags right now. I slowly stood up and headed for the drawer where the divorce paper was kept. Then I noticed John's smartphone screen flickering on the table. It looked like he had received a message. I didn't mean to look, but what I saw was shocking. What's this? The screen was filled with an overwhelming number of heart symbols. I instinctively picked up the phone to check the message. Thanks for last night. Let's stay over and snuggle again soon. The sender was someone named Rachel. I racked my brain, but I had no idea who Rachel could be. I checked towards the bathroom. John still showed no signs of coming out. Looking back at the smartphone, which was carelessly left unlocked. No way. I sighed at first glance. The more I looked, the more evidence of infidelity I found. Just from the messages, I could tell how close he was with Rachel, and there were even photos of them cozily snuggling up together. To leave such clear evidence without even setting a lock, how careless could he be? Or maybe he thought it was fine if I found out. He fools around me, doesn't he? I found myself eerily calm. I recorded John's phone screen with my own, noting down anything that might serve as evidence. Once I finished and put his phone back on the table, John came out of the bath. Without a word and no follow-up to earlier, he retreated to his room. It was plain and simple, John had been unfaithful. That's why he'd been so indifferent. In my sorrow, I came to terms with it. The next day, I started the process of divorcing John. No more hesitation, no more confusion. All that was left was the anger at the reality of being betrayed. First, I needed to find out who Rachel was. Since it's best to rely on professional help for certainty, I decided to hire a private investigator. At the same time, I started doing my own research. If John was cheating, his recent overtime and working weekends were suspicious. With my father's help, I could quickly verify the facts. It pained me to worry him, but it had to be done. I had to brace myself. And then, I would show him in revenge. The hardest part of preparing for the divorce was having to see John's face even during such times. I used to find that face so dear, but now, I just wanted to slap it. Perhaps my feelings showed that. John spoke to me first unusually, saying, "Hey, you're looking uglier than usual, you feeling sick or something?" Couldn't he have said something nicer? I smiled and replied, "I'm fine. Once I'm ready, I won't need to be here anymore." Over the weekend, as John went off to his usual work, I decided it was time to act. I told everything to my father. He was furious and immediately arranged a new place for me to move into. I had planned to go back to my parents' house at first, but my sister had just returned home to let her baby see them. Considering all the possibilities, it wasn't feasible for me to stay there. Instead, my father arranged for me to stay in a mansion worth $2 million that a relative was about to put up for sale. They weren't in a rush to sell, so they let me stay there. My father even gave me enough money for my immediate needs, so my life was back to normal. In fact, it was more comfortable than before. "Hey, where the hell are you?" It was 3 days after I left the house when John called me in shock. When I responded with a nonchalant guess where, John's voice was high-pitched and frantic. "And the divorce paper is missing." "You didn't, did you?" I was surprised too. He had actually noticed the divorce paper was gone. Had he panicked and searched for it after realizing I was gone? Anyway, this was the first time I saw John so flustered. Even over the phone, I could vividly imagine him panicking, and I couldn't help but laugh a little. "What do you mean what?" "I just went and filed it at the office." When I answered calmly, John made a ridiculous sound of shock. "What? Why would you do that?" "Oh, come on, you said it yourself. If I ever fail to make Emily happy, please submit this," you said with such confidence, remember? "But that was just to reassure your parents." So he was panicking because I actually filed for divorce, something he intended only as a performance. "Besides, I told you the other day, didn't I? If this lifestyle continued, I'd file for divorce." But at that time, I was just tired. I talked to my father, you know. "Your department isn't that busy, is it?" I cut off John's attempt to take advantage of his fatigue to excuse himself. He was confused. Well. He always claimed to be busy, constantly signaling how busy he was. Indeed, he came home late and often worked on weekends. And I, without any suspicion, just worried. But I should have questioned it. Should have checked whether he was actually going to work or not. I thought it was odd, you know? When I met with Father yesterday, I asked him. He was puzzled too. He said it's strange, there might be the occasional overtime, but working weekends? Hardly ever. "No, that's..." "Hey, you weren't working, were you? What kept you so busy every week? Where were you going?" No response from John. I knew it. He couldn't answer. He must be desperately searching for an excuse in his head right now. John is smart and smooth-talking. But this time, whatever he says is pointless. Because I already know everything. Rachel, right? She's quite the cutie, isn't she? I could hear John gasp over the phone. Why? Private investigators are quite skilled, aren't they? They secured photos and videos as evidence right away. I glanced at the photos and the report in my hand as I read them aloud. Rachel Smith, a 22-year-old working as an office clerk in accounting. Oh, she's more than a decade younger than you, isn't she? I'm also 8 years apart from you, John. Looks like you have a thing for younger women. Her place is a second-floor apartment near the station, right? So this is where you've been going every week. Emily, wait, Miss Smith is... Don't be so formal, you call her Ray Ray, don't you? That's such a cute nickname, Ray Ray. John was actually quite the baby. He used to cling to me a lot before we got married. Back then, I found it sweet that John, who is 8 years older than me, was so affectionate, but now just the thought of it makes me recoil. Oh, yes. The conversations with Ray Ray are well documented as evidence too. Wait for me to leave my wife, really? That's such a cliché line from a married man. Couldn't you come up with anything better? According to the detective, John really looked down on me. Ray Ray asked laughing, "What if your wife finds out?" And John replied, "Doesn't matter. She's on the way now." Can you believe that? Wait, Emily. You're misunderstanding something. Just meet with me, please. Yeah, I figured we needed to meet at least once. The next night, the meeting was set, with Rachel coming along. The location was the mansion I was renting. John arrived at the appointed time looking restless, glancing around nervously. "What's with this mansion?" "It's the house I'm renting. It's worth $2 million. $2 million. John's voice cracked in disbelief as my father watched him intently with a stern look. "I see your father is also here today." John's eyes darted back and forth uneasily. "Of course. You brought Rachel along, it would be unfair otherwise. Plus, this affair is between employees, so it's better to have my father, the company's CEO, accompany me." John replied with a strange smile, "Right." My father had been staring down John with a demonic expression the whole time. Rachel was a small, cute woman with light-colored hair. But she seemed to have a surprisingly strong will. As soon as the discussion started, she glared at me and said, "I'm a victim too. I had no idea John was married. And now, to be called out to a place like this so suddenly, it's displeasing." Rachel stated this with a snort. An intense character indeed. I was taken aback, but even more so, John had gone pale. "What? What are you talking about? You're the one who pressed me to leave my wife quickly." "That was just a joke." Rachel turned away with a huff, and John's face was flushed with anger. "Why do I even bother with a woman like her?" he muttered under his breath. Hearing this, Rachel snapped back, and they started arguing right in front of me. "The nerve of you! As if I would ever seriously fall for an old man like you! What? You think this is my fault? You're the one who said our company was going down. That it was on the decline. That's why I broke it off with Emily." "What?" Apparently, right after our marriage, Rachel had whispered these things to John. "The company is on the brink of bankruptcy. If it continues like this, even you, as her husband, will lose out." At first, John didn't pay much attention, but Rachel had a way with words, and he started to take her seriously. Moreover, seeing how I was overly considerate and nice to him, he was convinced that our company was indeed failing. "I thought you were buttering me up just to saddle me with debts." "What?" "I was just trying to be nice, because I thought you were tired. And everyone's been too kind. I thought something was up." That was probably because I'm the CEO's daughter, and they were just being respectful. Anyways, the idea that my father's company was in trouble was a complete misunderstanding. Father was there and affirmed it himself. "Thanks to everyone, we're actually doing great. There's no way we're going bankrupt anytime soon." Upon hearing my father's words, John collapsed to his knees, looking defeated. I had a bad feeling about this. So, what was all this for? In the end, John had just fallen for Rachel's schemes. Rachel was just curious about what kind of man John, who had married the CEO's daughter, was, and that's why she approached him. At first, he paid no attention to her. So she lied to grab his attention, saying, "This company is finished. You, married to the boss's daughter, you're in danger too." Fearing a joint downfall with us, the company's executives, John probably started ignoring me, thinking of an amicable divorce. I was just duped, can't you see, Emily? Okay? With a twisted face, John tried to get closer to me. "Maybe you were just duped, sure. That's right. So let's not talk about a divorce. But you know, this has made it crystal clear to me." John looked up at me, puzzled. "It means that this man would be the first to run away if we were ever in the same dire straits. Even now, he'd cheated without any discussion with me. And instead of asking for a divorce outright, he'd been cowardly enough to manipulate me into saying it first. We took vows, for better, for worse, remember? You'd abandon me in a heartbeat if I got sick. That's not true. I wouldn't do that, Emily. Please, listen to me." "There's nothing more to say. I just wanted to know why you were ignoring me. Never thought it'd turn out that I did nothing wrong. We'll talk through the lawyer from here on out." "Lawyer?" John's face went pale. You think you can cheat so brazenly and not be blamed? I'll be sure to pay you back, John and Rachel. Wait, please! I might even lose my place at the company. As John's voice trembled, Rachel also let out a cry of despair. No, no! That's not fair. It was just a joke, after all. It's his fault for falling for it. They scorned each other, each insisting they weren't in the wrong. Such an ugly sight, it made one sick to watch. Was I really putting up with all this pain for a whole month for these people? It's pitiful, even to myself. I smiled at the arguing pair and said, I get it now. You two are perfect for each other. You're so alike. I'm glad I stepped back. Well, since we won't be seeing each other anymore, goodbye. Wait, wait! Emily! Emily! My father gently put his arm around me, shielding me. We then left the scene. From behind, John kept calling my name, but I completely ignored him without looking back. Later on, I divorced John and got a supposal support from John. It seems John had a decent amount of savings, so he paid me quite an amount. Rachel's parents were mad when they knew what had happened and severely chewed her out. As for the company, while my father was raging about firing them, I was wondering what to do, but it turns out the two of them couldn't stand the stares and offered their resignation. I was relieved, but my father was the happiest of all. John was crying until the end, persistently clinging to me. If that were true, he shouldn't have done what he did. What John probably missed was the title of being the CEO's son-in-law. The thought of never seeing his face again is refreshing. My family welcomed me warmly when I returned home as a divorcee. I also went back to my job as an office worker. I thought my colleagues would handle me with kid gloves, but surprisingly everyone welcomed me back without fuss. People were saying behind your back, why would someone like you choose a guy like that? When someone slapped my back and said that, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. If I ever decide to marry again, at least I'll avoid someone who acts as a good person just outside.